Mr. Partha Bhattacharya is the former chairman with us on the show right now. Thank you so much, Mr. Bhattacharya, for taking time out and joining us. To begin with, let's just start off with what's going on with global coal prices, because they've seen a massive surge. And given that China is not producing steel, what would you assume can be attributed to this rally?
Well, yes, it has been a very strong rally of prices in the last 6 months or so. Prices have, in most cases, jumped up by somewhere between 25 to 50% even. And it is largely because of Chinese demand. That is what the markets say. But if you look at the impact on India, I think the Indian impact will be muted, primarily because India largely depends upon, at least 75% of its requirement is met domestically. And basically it is Coal India and Singareni collieries, and some of the private players will come up in course of time. So the impact will be there, certainly, because India is also dependent on imports to some extent, and there the price increase will definitely have an impact on the end-use factors. Like, for example, metallurgical coal prices will go up, so steel will be costlier. So that will be there. But the impact will be muted. And I also feel that this is not going to be a very long cycle. It should be over in a reasonable amount of time. It should be some sort of restrictive flows somewhere, which is causing this. The reasons are not very. It cannot be only because China's demand is demanding or something like that. It has to be much more in depth for it to continue or live for a longer period of time. I think it is not a very long-term phenomenon. Of course, the impact is really very severe. In fact, the freight rates, ocean freight rates, have also sky-high. So it is impacting the importers quite a bit. There is no doubt about that.
Understood. That's the view coming in on how you see this overall rally playing out. But I just want to understand how you're reading into the commodity boom as a whole, Mr. Bhattacharya, because there's a lot of comparisons to what we witnessed in the year 2008. How did coal behave then? Because you were heading Coal India at the time. And while it was easy to pass on the higher prices to Coal India customers, was that the case that was witnessed in the year 2008, and how different or similar would you say is the situation now?
You see, today the level of imports have gone up much more than what it was in 2008. In fact, till 2007, it was largely Coal India meeting the country's demand, excepting for metallurgical coal. That we don't have. That is not available in the country. But the thermal coal, the coal for power stations and all the thermal coal users, they were largely met by Coal India. So there was not too much of a problem. Coal India's pricing has nothing to do with international pricing. We have our pricing norms completely different. It is deregulated. The board decides the price, but then it is decided based on very different kind of principles. And we don't equate with international prices. At least at that time, we were not doing that. Sometime in 2011, we decided to, carry this sort of convergence a little forward, at least for high calorific value, small grades, high top grades, where the quantity is very insignificant, very small quantities. There we have gone for a import parity pricing. But otherwise, import prices didn't mean anything in 2008. Today it means, because the shortfall is about 25%, 20 to 25% is the shortfall. Metallurgical coal, even then we couldn't manage. Today also we can't manage because we don't have that coal. The coal that can be substituted, for example, basically, you see, today we are just giving you numbers. Today we are importing anywhere between 230-40 million tons. Out of that, something like 50% is because we don't have that coal. That is the metallurgical coal for steel plants and a very high-grade coal for high energy-intense usage, mostly in the western part of the country, states like Gujarat and Maharashtra and all that. So those coals is unavailable. But the coal that we have and yet we are importing, that's happening because the production capacity was not built up sufficiently. And that is because the country relied on only one player, Coal India. So that is not how it happens. This commercial mining which has come now, last year, if it would have come 20 years back, then this import would not have happened. At least the 50% of the import would not have happened. Sufficient production capacity would have been created. It is because of the delay in bringing up the policy for commercial mining. That is the reason why we are still into imports of coal which is available in the country. So this is the broad position, I would say.
When we just talk about really what's happening as far as commodity prices is concerned, do you think sooner or later all commodities will see a lot of flows impacting prices? Because, global investment into commodities have been very, very low in the last 7-8 years.
Yeah. I agree with that. Basically, you see, it is all largely driven by oil and other commodities and some of the other commodities like coal, etc. In fact, investments in coal has also dried up because coal is not a preferred fuel, and financing for investment in coal is also globally very, very restricted. So that is possibly the reason why new investments are not forthcoming. But even then, thermal coal actually is muted. The demand is going to be muted with more and more renewables and solar, etc., coming in. The overall demand for thermal coal will be somewhat slower. Definitely will be slower. Every country, some countries have actually given up coal or giving up coal. They're moving away from coal. Transitioning is happening. India, of course, is on a different footing. India and China will be on a different footing for quite some time. It will have to depend on coal for quite a bit. But still then, it will not be depending the way it was depending earlier. Because at least for the new generation capacities, power generation capacities, it is clear that thermal is going to be costlier than solar. So therefore, new capacities will come largely in the solar space or renewable space, not in the thermal space. So whatever coal demand increase happens from this position, it will be largely due to the existing thermal power plants now operating at a low PLF, which can possibly, there could be certain reforms carried out, DISCOM reforms or whatever reforms, and their PLFs can go up from the current level of 50-55% to somewhere around 65-70. We are capable of doing even 80%, but that, to my mind, now seems to be theoretical. It may not go up to that level. But for every 1% growth in the PLF, it is a 10 million tons of additional coal demand. So if you look at it that way, even a 10% growth means 100 million tons of extra demand. So the demand growth of coal will happen from three areas. One is the rise in PLF of the existing power plants, where there is a scope, quite substantial scope. The second is, of course, replacement of imports to some extent. Not whole, about 40 to 50% import could be replaced. That is the second. And the third will be alternative uses of coal, like coal as a feedstock, for example, for coal gasification or use of coal for production of ammonia, fertilizers, chemicals, methanol, and things like that, which is being talked about quite a bit. But on the ground, actions are happening to the extent there where we can actually see the Prime Minister's vision of 100 million tons of coal being gasified by 2030. If that has to come, a lot more actions will have to follow from now on. But that could be another set of demand. These are the only three areas from where the coal demand will come. And that will have to be met by partly by Coal India, partly by the new commercial miners who are coming into the space.
Right. So when we just talk about the sort of inflation that we have seen leading to high commodity prices, do you think particularly for coal also it will be very inflationary in nature, and that's why one will have to wait and watch as to how price hikes happen?
Well, for coal, at least as far as India is concerned, you are talking about global or India? If you are talking about India, let us put it this way,
the
coal prices will be... Hello? Yeah, I am replying in the Indian context. In the Indian context, the coal prices will be definitely stable because Coal India is the driver of the coal prices. And Coal India, actually, if you look at the price trends, it has not increased the prices for about the last 5-6 years. The prices remain the same. Though the landed price goes up because railways keep on increasing the railway freight. They have to do that to cross-subsidize passenger freight. So they are somewhat bound by that. But otherwise,
for taking out time for us. Always good to get perspective from you. On that note, we're taking a break. Coming back quickly. Stay tuned.